So today the rope rear main seal goes into the Holden 308. I'm sticking with the idea of a rope seal and not a neoprene one just because I want to stay with tradition, and maybe part of me kind of likes the challenge. If you follow Come Racing's video on YouTube about how to install one, it doesn't look like a huge challenge. It looks more like you've got to be just very deliberate and very methodical in how you do it, and there are certain steps that really matter. So that's the process I'm following today. That video is in the description from Come Racing if you're interested. So I've just got myself prepped up. I'll show you what I'm doing. This rope seal came in the gasket kit that I bought for the 308. I tried to find an ACL brand rear main seal, which is what Come Racing recommended. It's the same part number, but I could not find an ACL one, so they must be all used up, I guess. So that's the seal. I have massaged it so that it is ropey again, and it's been soaking in engine oil, clean engine oil, for a couple of days. Step one is going to be to use this punch and add some dimples into the surface where the seal is going to sit inside the main cap. There's actually some grooves in there already. I'm not really sure if that's partly what they're to do, is to help the rope stay put and not walk around, but this punch is going to just add some dimples through there. Likewise in the block where the seal is going to go in. I'm going to use some sealant inside the groove before I put the seal in, and that was mentioned on Come Racing's video as a GM sealant. They weren't specific. I did some research. A few people have used this exact one, and it's the same sealant that I'm going to use after the rope is installed, just on the cut ends of the rope and also on the mating surface where the main cap meets the block. I'm kind of pleased actually that this was the sealant that was mentioned, because I bought this massive tube just to do the oil drain plugs on my Ducatis, my 848 and the 939. So it's kind of satisfying to get to use it again. My dad had a chunk of steel, heavy steel tube, and he lathed it back for me to the diameter of my crank, so that that's going to be the tool that finally presses the seal in with this copper hammer. And I've just got this chunk of steel just to get the rope seating process started. Once the seal is in there, I think some cam lube. I've got this cam lube from when I installed the Crow cam in there, which is still in there and still looking fairly juicy. But I think actually before I put the crank in for the final time, I'm just going to slather a bit more cam lube down there while I can reach it. So that is what Come Racing had recommended to use, just some kind of cam lube on the exposed faces of the seal before you put the crank in. So I guess where the seal is touching the crankshaft, that's where that goes. So I think I'm ready. I'll get started. You should be able to pretty clearly see those dimples there. They're not huge, but they're just to give the rope a little bit of something to grab, I guess, so that it doesn't walk its way around too easily. I didn't whack it too hard. It didn't really take much to make a dimple. So now I'm going to repeat that on the main cap. I just cleaned them out with a bit of shellite after I punched them, just in case, you know. And now I'm going to get a bit of sealant in there. This paintbrush is going to be better than my finger, I hope. How will I do this? Pretty clean. I am still never going to get through that entire tube or even a noticeable fraction of it. Just a minor setback, I had to lift the block up higher in the engine stand so that I can get my first mandrel through to the rope seal before that was too high, and I wouldn't have been able to get that flat. So there we go, ready to start whacking it in. Start in the center. And at this stage it looks like there is no way that's going in. It's so thick. Just careful not to let it touch that bearing face. But it's not going in at all. Get the skinniest part of it lined up, see if that works. No, it's going in a bit better. Is that going to go in yet? That looks way thick, the chunk hanging out. I'll just keep working it for a while. So what's bothering me about pushing this in is that it just looks like there's more of it hanging out from the metal face, like the height of that, than what I saw on the Come Racing video. So I'm going to, maybe putting the crank in and tightening it down could push that in a little bit more. I'm going to put the rope into the main cap and just keep working on it, get it as far as I can with the mandrel, and then torque it in. Well, not torque it, but really tighten the crank in there and just see if that changes. So how much is hanging out? Let's see. I would say that's probably between 4 and 5 mil, really. I only expected it to be maybe 1 or 2. I'm not super happy that that went in as deep as it should, but I'm pretty sure the crank's going to help do that. I've got to cut these off flush. I'm not going to worry too much if they're not completely flush, because when the crank goes in, it may actually push the seal in more and they may end up a little bit underneath. So, but I'll still do what I can to get them fairly close to flush. How long does that take to cut off? Good grief. So pretty much same process for the main cap. Again, it's sticking out a fair way. I left a little bit more hanging out the top than 1 mil. It's probably 2, maybe 3 mil, because I keep thinking that once the once this is clamped down with the crank in there, it's going to push the seal in a bit more, at least I hope it does. We will see. I used a Stanley knife to cut the ends off here, and it was a fresh blade, but geez, it was crap, it took forever. And just used a little flip knife, which just melted through that pretty easily. It was a much neater cut. So I think the sharpness of that knife, as they said in the Come Racing video, really does matter. Test it first. So I have cleaned these out, put the bearings back in, and put a bit of lube on the bearings. So the crank's going to go in now, and I'm going to tighten the cap down and see what it does to the rope seal. There's a massive gap in here because the rope is obviously taking up a lot of space and giving the crank less of a diameter to fit into, but I'm just going to gently work it down, see what happens. So I'm looking at this gap here between the cap and the block. This is recessed a bit, so I don't know how I'm going to get a feeler gauge in here. I might be able to if I can turn the crank around. Maybe when that divot is lined up here, I might be able to get the width of a feeler gauge in. But the idea is nothing can fit in there. So I think I'm going to be doing this a few times. The rope seal may need a bit of trimming for that to go down any further, so I might stop there. So I'll take the cap off now and see if it needs some trimming, and then go for round 2. Oh, it's definitely pushed it in further, so that is nowhere near as high as it was, so that's good. I think we just need a few iterations of that. It'll be interesting to see how much of that is sticking up. I might have to trim that more off the block, and I'll leave this protruding here because that looks like about the right amount. So I'll pull the crank out, do a bit of trimming, put the crank back in, and then go from there. It's hard to fit it into that groove. Probably not good for my knife blade, is it? Don't do too much. Okay, crank back in for round 2. So just tightening down for round 2. So after iteration 2, I couldn't get a 2/1000 feeler gauge in that side. I couldn't access this side because the counterbalance on the crank was in the way, and the crank cannot turn yet. So there's still too much seal in here. So for the next iteration, I'm going to trim just around the edges here, the bits of the seal that are sitting on this face that shouldn't be there. There'll still be a bit in the cap of the seal protruding out. But on the block, I'm going to really work to get all that excess off as well, and then try another go at it. I guess I'm kind of aiming for where the cap is still down hard enough that I can't get the 2/1000 feeler gauge in, but that I also can turn the crank. And when I can turn the crank, I know I've got to get it, the turning torque to be no less than 10 Newton meters, no more than 25, and ideally somewhere between 15 and 20, I believe. But this is going to happen in stages. I don't want to take too much seal away. I don't want to rush it. If the crank has to come in and out another 2 or 3 times or more, so be it. So yeah, I'm going to start trimming this stuff. It's a bit nerve-wracking, not wanting to damage the block. Tiny bits at a time. Oh, cut myself. Oh no, that's just lube. I'll do the same to the main cap now, but I'm still going to leave a little bit sticking out, of course. That's almost flush. It's not quite flush though. Still sticking out a tiny bit, but I think that's much more tidy. I don't know about down through the side there. I might worry about that after the next iteration. So I've cleaned up these edges a bit on the main cap. That could probably get cleaned up a bit more. Just don't want to risk taking too much out. I know there are bits in here that I'll probably need to cut out as well, and maybe trim some of this. There's a bit of fur kind of hanging off the edges there. But yeah, I'm going to go in for round 3. So that time, even after trimming it back, I still could not get the crank to rotate at all. So Gary, my Holden mentor, has suggested that we put the number 4 cap on, tighten that down, and just see how the crank turns with just the bottom main seal against the crank without the number 5, the main cap for number 5. So the idea being that if it's still really mega tight, maybe the bottom seal needs to get pressed in more. If not, if it's spinning fine, it could be that it's this part of the seal that's in the main cap that's the problem. So then I'm going to need their muscle, I guess, to Scotty or Gary, well, probably Scotty's muscle, to somehow bash that seal in a bit more. I had thought that the crank would be enough to force the seal in, but maybe not, hey? So we'll see what happens. By the way, these ARP studs, I'm just getting the stud into the block kind of until it just seats, like finger tight, I guess you'd say. And then the nuts get tightened down on the studs. Probably should have iterated back and forth a little bit more than I did then. But they're just 2, so now I'll take the nuts down. Well, unfortunately, I think it was a failure. The crank has been in 5 or 6 times, and every time just trying to bash that seal down to get it further in. I don't think it's going in anymore. There's just something about it that's just a bit too thick, because when I got the crank in, we just couldn't turn it at all. So Gary had suggested let's just leave the rear main cap off and just test the effect of the bottom, well, I guess it's the top half of the seal really, because the engine's upside down. Put the number 4 main cap on and spin the crank. And honestly, it took, I think we worked out the first time probably 60 or 70 Newton meters to get the crank turning. And the breakaway torque for this, with the main cap on, with the seal on both sides, should be between ideally 15 to 20 Newton meters. So it was way too tight, just with half the seal in there. So yeah, that's when we took the crank in and out a few times and just kept bashing and bashing and bashing at that seal to try to squish it in more, but it wasn't making any difference. Once we got to a breakaway torque of 40 Newton meters, nothing was changing. How much more effort do I put into this? Well, I don't know. I don't know that any more effort's going to change how tight that seal is. And the seal in the main cap looked like it was protruding just as much as this one, kind of all the way around. So I think it's just a case of that seal just being a little bit too thick for whatever reason. I don't know. But that's it. I'm calling it quits. And what I'm going to go to instead is a backup option that Gary had ready for me, which I haven't installed yet, but it's likely to happen next time. I'm posting this video now just in case any of you have a similar experience with rope rear main seals just not fitting, just not being able to fit them in there enough and still have a lower breakaway torque for spinning the crank. I'll show you the other seal. So this one's made by Felpro, and it is a conversion for Holden 308, among other engines, a 253 and also the 355 stroker. But this one is a bit different to a lot of the other neoprene rear mains. I think there's a Buick one that you can use with a Holden 308, but with the Buick one, you've got to remove this knurling on the crank, I believe, and that's got to get machined off. With this one, you don't have to. You just install it straight away. Gary's already done that with a mate of his in his engine, and that went pretty easy and smooth. So fingers crossed, I'll do this and it's going to work in this engine, and I'm not going to get a rear main seal leak. So yeah, it is disappointing. I guess I didn't do this hoping it would fail. I did this hoping it would work because I wanted it to be traditional. But it's been pretty much a full half day of trying to make it work, and I don't really want to put any more effort into it. I can't think of anything else to do to this particular seal to make it work, and I don't want to go through the whole process again with another one just to have the same problem. So there we go. So if you have any experience with rope rear main seals like this, where you just couldn't get it to fit, I'd love to hear what you did, if you found a solution, or if you ended up doing what I think I'm going to do, which is go to the neoprene conversion. And that will likely be the next video on this 308. I'll see you then.